A lot of.
The camera guy doesn't like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
I've never seen them all. It's awesome.
There you go.
Robbie, what's up here on the front?
You look like I'm gonna jump rope.
Got a little subtle correction.
She's a dear person. I just don't know what to do with her.
I will, when the, has everybody got their, if the waitress comes in looking for orders, I'll stop them.
I think she took everybody's order.
Has everybody got their order?
Has everybody placed an order?
No, I don't think we have.
We got a couple things.
If she comes in, then I'll hold things up so we can get right on through that.
Oh, boy.
You want to sing for us?
No, let's say the prayer.
John's ready to say a prayer.
Has he done his prayer preparation?
I think he's done his prayer preparation. Proper preparation for a prayer.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Takes me a while to stand up.
I don't see any, except for our featured speakers today, I don't see anybody that's new. Am I missing anybody that is a guest today? Then we'll move on. Just to give you a reminder, we started off with a prayer by our friend John. And then we have our Optimist Creed. Did you see the display behind me? And then we do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag to my left, to your right. So John, would you please take the floor, please?
Join me in the Lord's Prayer, a few words. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And Lord, as we come to you with love today, remembering it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict, it's God's job to judge, it's our job to love. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. God bless you, Lord, for all that you've given us here, the strength and the energy. And be with our speakers today and be in their hearts and their souls. In Jesus' name we do ask it. Let us have our creed now.
Promise yourself
To be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind. Health, happiness, and prosperity, every person you meet. To make all your friends feel there is something in you.
Look at the
Sunny side of everything, and make your optimism come true. Think only of the best, work only for the best, to expect only the best. To be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own. To forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future. To wear a cheerful countenance at all times and give every little creature a smile. Give so much time to improve yourself that you have no time to criticize others. Be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to admit the presence of trouble.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did Wayne open?
I don't know, when did you order?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did not.
I'll let Kim know. Did you order one?
Can we turn this fan off, James? Does that hurt?
As a matter of fact, I think one of those is mine. She put it down on
Where is it?
this is.
What
One.
do you want?
No. She put my drink down over here because I was standing there. I wasn't listening.
Welcome, Optimist friends. I am Benny Shelton of the Optimist Club of Covington. We meet every Wednesday at 12 noon at Pee Wee's Place, 2325 Anderson Road, Crescent Springs, Kentucky. For our TVNK viewers, today is October 23rd, 2024. Today's presentation is videotaped and rebroadcast on Spectrum 203, Spectrum Channel 203, Alta Fiber, Channel 815, Thursdays at 8 p.m., rebroadcast on TVNK. That's the Telecommunications Broadcast of Northern Kentucky. Stay connected with TVNK on the map, TVNK Facebook, and Optimists Facebook. James Morlock is a very amiable, distinguished, and exemplary director of our camera. He's the editor, and he makes this entire thing possible for our Optimist program. We have a couple of excellent speakers today, and to introduce them, I'm going to present our program director, Janine Bell Smith. John isn't here to do sound effects, is he?
I'm Janine Bell Smith. I am past president of the Optimist Club for 2 years. I am the secretary and I am the program director for 4. And today I have the honor and pleasure of introducing Rob Sanders. What do you know about Rob Sanders, Kenton County Commonwealth attorney? So much to know about. Rob Sanders has been the elected prosecutor in Kenton County, the state's 3rd largest county since 2007. Sanders also grew up in Covington, went to Tulane University, then Northern Kentucky University, Chase Law School. During his law degree, he earned his law degree in 1998. He served as an assistant prosecutor in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office for a few years before joining his father's firm, where he practiced criminal defense, personal injury, and small business and domestic law. His father, Bob Sanders, is a staunch Democrat, while the younger Sanders is a Republican. In 2004, Sanders ran for Covington City Commissioner. He took office in January of 2005. A year later, he ran for Kenton County Commonwealth Attorney and won. He has been reelected for 2 more terms, and most recently in 2018, he is Commonwealth Attorney for the past 6 years. One thing that I do believe that I look for every day on the internet is Rob Sanders has This Week in Kenton County Court. There's some very famous faces if you go to this website, and I love every minute of it. May I introduce Rob Sanders? Thank you, Rob.
That's great. Thank you for the introduction. That means I don't have to talk about myself, which is the best part of this speech. I actually made notes. Normally I don't speak from notes, but I had so much today that I want to make sure that I mention to you. I made a few notes. But I do look forward to the question and answer portion of this presentation because it's my favorite part. It's talking about the things you all want to hear about rather than what I decide to talk about. First of all, I want to give you all a little bit of a refresher. I know it's been a couple years since the last time I spoke to the Optimist Club, but a little refresher on what is the Commonwealth Attorney. Kentucky is a little bit different than a lot of other states because we have 2 different kinds of prosecutors, one of which is the Commonwealth Attorney. The Commonwealth Attorney is a felony prosecutor. A felony in Kentucky is anything that is punishable by 1 year or more in the state penitentiary. We have 57 different Commonwealth Attorneys in Kentucky. Each one of us is responsible for a judicial circuit. I am responsible for the 16th Judicial Circuit, which is Kenton County. Because of the size of our county and the population, we make up a judicial circuit in and of ourselves. There's 120 counties in Kentucky, though, so if there's only 57 Commonwealth Attorneys and 120 counties, that means obviously some Commonwealth Attorneys are responsible for more than one county. For instance, Lewis Kelly out in Boone County is responsible for Boone and Gallup. If you get a little further out, some Commonwealth Attorneys are responsible for 3 or sometimes even 4 different counties in their judicial circuit. But here in Kenton County, fortunately, I only work in this one circuit. It means I only have to worry about going to our courthouse, not driving from county to county. So what kinds of offenses are felony offenses? We handle all the worst of the worst. The murders, the robberies, the rapes, the child molestings, the serious assaults, child pornography, online solicitation of children, carjacking, kidnapping, stealing anything that's valued over $1,000, any kind of theft or property crime where the value of what has been taken is over $1,000. Those are the worst of the worst. Probably the smaller crimes that we handle but that are far more common are things like drug possession. However, I'm talking serious drugs, cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine. You have to have at least a half pound of marijuana before marijuana becomes my problem. But what we don't do are misdemeanors. In Kentucky, a misdemeanor is any crime that's punishable by 12 months or less in the county jail. So we don't do those, we don't do DUIs, we don't do traffic tickets, we don't do juvenile court, and we don't practice civil law at all. All those things are handled by the county attorney, and here in Kenton County, our county attorney is Stacey Tackey. Every county in Kentucky has its own county attorney. They're the ones responsible for the misdemeanors, the traffic court, the juvenile, and representing the county on any kind of civil litigation that comes up. I have been doing this, as Janine mentioned, since 2007. I'm actually up for re-election this year, and I'm got the best kind of election because I'm running unopposed this time. It's the second time that I've had the good fortune to run unopposed. So I've run 2 contested elections, and 2 times I've run unopposed. So I'm around as long as one person in this room remembers to vote for me. Come November the 5th, I'll be around for another 6 years, and I'm looking forward to it. It's the greatest honor and pleasure to be elected by the good people of Kenton County to be their Commonwealth's attorney. One of the things that we have done in my office is innovation. I pride myself on the fact that our office here in Kenton County is a leader throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky on trying new things, doing things different ways, but at the same time being aggressive felony prosecutors. I tell, if you ever hear me on Bill Cunningham's show, I go on 700 WLW once in a while to remind folks that we still do prosecute criminals in Kenton County. There are some jurisdictions where that's a novel thing that they don't, but we still prosecute crime and we still send criminals to prison. And when it comes to the worst of the worst cases, like I mentioned, those murders, rapes, robberies, child molestings, assaults, arsons, things like that, we absolutely do put people in prison for those offenses. But one thing that we've been innovative about is how we handle drug possession cases. And what we try our best to not do is put people who are suffering from addiction in prison for their addiction. And obviously the crime is not the addiction, the crime is possession of drugs, but we have started what I call the HEART program. The HEART program started back when we were in the midst of a heroin epidemic. So HEART stands for Heroin Expedited Addiction Recovery and Treatment. And the whole notion behind that, now that's broad because heroin was joined by fentanyl and now being overrun by methamphetamine, and we treat them all the same. So even though it started during the heroin crisis, we treat them all the same regardless of what the type of serious drug it is. But the whole concept behind the HEART program is to give every addict the opportunity to enter and complete treatment and aftercare rather than go to prison. And we do that for a couple of different reasons. Number one is to save your tax dollars. That's probably the biggest one, whether it's jail costs here in Kenton County or prison costs for the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky. It is far, far cheaper to put people into intensive treatment and hopefully get them off the drugs that is causing their addiction and driving the crime in the first place than it is to just lock them up and throw away the key. So we have set this program up where we literally take them straight from the county jail to the treatment program. We don't trust them to go there themselves. We don't trust their friends, their family. Sometimes it was even their drug dealers picking them up from the county jail and supposedly driving them to the treatment program. And then we were wondering why they never showed up. Well, so we fixed the transportation issue. We take them straight to the treatment programs ourselves. In fact, it's become so successful with the treatment programs that half the treatment programs now provide their own transportation where they'll come to the jail and pick them up. But for those that don't, the jail, either a jail or a tank bus, when I say tank bus, we're not just giving them bus fare and sending them on the way. We have a tank bus designated to come every Thursday morning to pick all the HEART program participants up and take them straight to the treatment program before that bus starts its regular routes for the day. But as long as folks get in the treatment and complete the treatment, and then we have now partnered with the Life Learning Center to provide aftercare. And if you don't know, the Life Learning Center provides job readiness training. They literally cover any issue an addict can possibly have or need help with, whether it's finding them housing, finding them clothes to wear, training, getting their GED, training them on how to do job interviews. They have a clothing, I call it a store, they give them the clothes, but they can go there and get clothes to wear to their job interviews. They have childcare, they have health care, they have a kitchen that will feed them 2 meals a day. The Life Learning Center has been an excellent partner in this because so many people were getting out of the treatment, they were off the drugs, but they had no place to go and no job skills. So they ended up right back in the house, surrounded right next to the same people that got them in trouble in the first place. But the Life Learning Center has helped us bridge that gap to make sure that folks have the resources they need to be successful when they get out of the drug treatment. Not everybody graduates from drug treatment. Some people run away from the treatment program or go out and use drugs again, get rearrested. We do everything we can to try and make sure they are successful before we end up putting them in prison. But trust me, in this county, if you go to prison for possessing drugs, it's because you have blown all of the second and third and sometimes even fourth chances that you've gotten to get clean and get straight and go to work, earn a living, pay your taxes, and be a law-abiding citizen. But the good news is the recidivism rate for those that graduate the Life Learning Center, if you graduate the Life Learning Center's program, 100% of their graduates will either be enrolled in full-time schooling or they will be employed. Most of them are employed. They've got a great number of partner agencies, businesses that work with them and will hire Life Learning Center participants to come work for them. But the recidivism rate for the graduates of the Life Learning Center is only about 8%. Now, to give you contrast there, a good drug treatment program is usually only about 50% successful, and prison recidivism for folks that don't get drug treatment and don't have any job placement or training is 82% in the next 10 years. That means if you just send somebody to prison and don't give them any kind of reentry assistance, within 10 years, 82% go back. So we're doing almost the complete opposite of that with folks that are finishing their drug treatment and finishing the Life Learning Center. We're down in the single digits, which is almost unheard of. This program has been so successful here in Kenton County that it was 2 years ago the model for the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky. The Kentucky Senate passed a bill to expand our program to 10 other pilot counties. So I got a call this morning from the Life Learning Center looking for me to set up with a meeting with the Commonwealth Attorney down in Moorhead, Kentucky, because that is probably going to be the next place that they open a Life Learning Center, but they're also looking to open one in Somerset and several more locations throughout Kentucky so that they can try and replicate the program that we started here in Kenton County. Y'all probably, if you read the newspaper or watch TV, you probably see a lot of our cases, whether you realize there are cases or not, but all of the the murder cases or the drug dealing cases, or child molesting cases, or whatever it is that happens to be in our courtroom, you probably see and read a lot about those cases. But one of the things that I do a lot of that a lot of folks don't realize is lobbying the legislature. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the changes that we've been successful in making in the legislature in 2024, because 2024 was a monumental year, in my opinion anyway, for criminal justice and for public safety in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. In the Commonwealth of Kentucky, before 2024, all of the crimes I'm about to list for you were considered non-violent offenses. And the significance of non-violent offense, it means somebody is eligible for parole after serving only 20% of their sentence. So if it's a non-violent offense and they get a 5-year sentence, they can be out in 1. 10-year sentence, they can be out in 2. 20-year sentence, they can be out in 4. So if it's a non-violent offense, even if they go to prison, they're only looking at serving, or at least the public is only guaranteed that they're going to serve 20% of their sentence, just a small fraction. Likewise, they also get so much good time credit that a non-violent offense will be served out. That means no parole, nobody looking over their shoulder, be served out in about 50% of what that sentence is. So a non-violent 10-year sentence is really only a 5-year sentence when you factor in good time. A non-violent 20-year sentence is only 10 years if you factor in. Now that's if they serve out. That means if they don't get parole, they don't get that early release after 20%, they can serve out the entire sentence in 50%. But all of these were non-violent crimes. Attempted murder, if there was no one injured. So if I shot at you, yelling, I'm gonna kill you, and I shoot a bunch of bullets at you, but I'm not a good shot and I miss, if I don't cause any injury, attempted murder before 2024 was a nonviolent offense. The same way with burglary first degree if no one was injured. Robbery second degree was always a nonviolent offense. Assault second degree, strangulation, distribution of child pornography, sexual abuse, incest, wanton endangerment, human trafficking, unlawful transaction with a minor, criminal abuse of a child, and any attempted felony sex offense. Those were all nonviolent offenses prior to 2024. The good news is, thanks to Kentucky's House Bill 5, that has all changed. We worked with the Kentucky legislature. All of our Northern Kentucky representatives were instrumental in that. The official bill sponsor was Representative Bauman out of Louisville, Kentucky. But all of our Northern Kentucky contingent were supporters and were who I worked with in getting through the changes that needed to be made. Now, House Bill 5 got a lot of attention because it had some more controversial things in it, like outlawing camping on public property. That was seemed to get all the headlines is making camping on public property illegal. Quite frankly, in the job I do, the camping was the least of my problems. I was far more worried about people only serving a fraction of their sentence for attempted murder. So when the Northern Kentucky representatives came to me and said, Rob, what else do we need to put in this omnibus crime bill in order to make a significant difference? I said, well, here's a novel concept. Let's make violent crimes violent under Kentucky law. Let's use a common sense definition of what is a violent crime. So when you have things like serious assaults, and I'm talking serious assaults, I'm talking people that do things like fracture somebody's skull, break their leg, shoot them, and require that person to undergo surgeries. Those are the kinds of violent offenses that were non-violent under Kentucky law prior to House Bill 5. House Bill 5 also created the offense of carjacking. It bumped up fleeing police from a D felony to a C felony. It gave prosecutors the ability to prosecute drug dealing or dealing the drug fentanyl that caused an overdose death is now considered manslaughter. Likewise, promoting contraband in a jail setting. In other words, somebody sneaking fentanyl into a jail and letting the other inmates overdose on it. That has now been bumped up to a C felony. There was an expansion of the definition of serious physical injury only in domestic violence cases to include the same definition of serious physical injury that we use for when somebody abuses a child. That means if you cause injury to a child's head, if you break a child's ribs, things like that, that was serious physical injury, but only when it was a child victim. It's now been expanded to where that applies in any domestic violence case. Also, one of the things that I'm probably most proud of about this bill, it changed the law so that if you have felony sex offenses with multiple victims, it used to be if somebody raped 20 different people, the prosecutor could cut them a deal and say, okay, you get one 10-year sentence for each of the 20 victims, but they all run concurrently or at the same time, which means just one 10-year sentence. But now all sentences for felony sex offenses that involve different victims have to be run consecutively. So if you rape 10 different victims, you get 10 different sentences, and you can't serve them at the same time. It has to be one sentence for each victim, one after another after another. And Kentucky used to have a cap on offenses that would limit C and D felonies to a cap of 20 years. We removed that cap in cases where there are separate victims, so that I don't ever have to go to a victim and say, look, I'm sorry you're a victim, but this defendant is capped at 20 years, so he's not going to serve any additional time for what he did to you. That cap is now gone, and each victim gets justice in his or her own respective cases. In addition, although these weren't part of House Bill 5 in the 2024 session, we also worked with Representative Stephanie Dietz and Senator Chris McDaniel, who sponsored the bill to make child-sized sex dolls illegal. Now, before I became Commonwealth Attorney, I didn't even know that such thing as a child-sized sex doll existed, much less did I want to think about who in their, and I can't even say right mind, but who in the world would order a child-sized sex doll. But believe it or not, on the dark web, these things are made in countries like China and other third world countries and they sell them on the dark web. And these perverts who like to prey on children or pretend that they are preying on children were ordering up child-sized sex dolls to be shipped into Kentucky. Those were not considered child pornography under Kentucky's then definition of what matter was. And it sounds kind of crazy that the definition of matter would affect what is and what is not child porn, but without boring you with the legal nuances of it, it didn't count. Dolls did not count. So thanks to Representative Deeds, Senator McDaniel, that bill passed, and anything to do with the child size sex doll is now illegal. Importing it's illegal, purchasing it, possessing it, sharing it with anybody else, and believe it or not, there were some places in the world where they had set up brothels with child size sex dolls where somebody could go rent them some time with that doll. All of that, now call it trafficking in child sex dolls, that is all now illegal. In the past, we have also worked, this wasn't in 2024, but in the past, we've also worked to get revenge porn made illegal in Kentucky. And what that is, somebody takes private erotic matter photos, videos of another person, either without their knowledge, or even if it's with their knowledge, but it was never intended to be shared publicly, and that person shares it without permission. That is a bill that we wrote here in Kenton County and got the legislature to pass, thanks to then Representative Diane St. Ange. Likewise, it used to only be a misdemeanor in Kentucky to assault a police canine if that canine was able to return to work, no matter how bad you assaulted the canine. And here in Kenton County, we had police canines. The sheriff's canine was stabbed. A Covington police canine, Ernie, was shot. And both those dogs returned to work, so it was only a misdemeanor that those defendants faced for the injuries that they caused the dogs. We got that changed thanks to Representative St. Ange, who sponsored Ernie's law, and it is now a felony offense, regardless of whether or not the dog recovers and returns to work, if you commit a serious assault on those police canines. Dan has already given me the 2-minute sign, so I know I'm down under 2 minutes now, which is good, because I've run out of notes, so I'm right on time. And we're to the part of this where I would love to answer your questions, and I'm hoping you all got some.
We're gonna take a short break, and you put your questions on these file cards, and we'll ask them the questions in a few minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Write your questions down for Rob. We'll ask him your questions.
What's next, you know?
John, do you spend some time with him?
Well, it's okay.
Do you want your question written down? I'll write it down real fast so it's on TV. Yes, no?
Well, his question was, so it's on TV. His question was, did anybody oppose it? And there was some opposition.
Hold on a second, we gotta have it on TV.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, you wanna reintroduce him after the break? You wanna do that? Oh. And then you can repeat the question that he asked you and answer it on TV.
Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. We just finished a very delicious lunch here at Kiwi's, and we now have a question and answer service for session. Worship. Question and answer session with Rob Sanders.
The first question I had was there any opposition to that House Bill 5? And not nearly as much as I thought there was going to be is the answer. However, there's always some people that have opposition to little bits or pieces, and there were some things that were not included in House Bill 5 that I had suggested, like I wanted arson first and second and third degree all to be included in violent crimes. They did not. They only included arson first degree. But there was a lot less opposition than I expected there to be. The next question I have is, what is the different levels of felons, and what do they mean? In Kentucky, felonies are broken down, and they're each given a letter designation, A, B, C, and D. A D felony is the lowest level. Most D felonies are punishable by 1 to 5 years in the state penitentiary. However, drug possession, I guess the slang term for it is a mini D, like a lowercase d, not a capital D. Drug possession cases are only 1 to 3 years. Everything else is 1 to 5 years. C felonies are 5 to 10 years. B felonies are 10 to 20 years, and A felonies are 20 to 50 years or life in prison. And then sort of a subset of the A felonies are capital offenses. That's murder and kidnapping that results in the death of the victim. Those bring in additional possible punishments of life without parole for 25 years, life without parole, period, and the death penalty. Now, theoretically, we still have the death penalty in Kentucky. However, it hasn't. We've had a moratorium now on the death penalty for over a decade, so nobody has been put to death in recent memory. Kentucky's only put to death 3 people since it reinstituted the death penalty. 2 of them were volunteers. So those were folks that got the death penalty from a jury, and they didn't want to appeal it. They just said, go ahead and execute me, and Kentucky did. We've only put to death 1 person against their will. And like I said, there's now a moratorium, so everybody's sitting on death row is just sitting there indefinitely until the Commonwealth of Kentucky finally gets off its tail and fixes the process for putting people to death. Fortunately, our new Attorney General, Russell Coleman, has actually just started that process of fixing the administrative laws that will allow us to start carrying out some of those death sentences. The next question I have is actually, there were 2 very similar questions, so I'm going to read them both at the same time. The first one says, coupon for cannabis from Ohio, thoughts? And the second one says, Ohio is advertising buying marijuana in Ohio to Kentucky residents. Is this against the law? First of all, this is a very new, y'all obviously pay attention to the news because this stuff just came up this week. It was the first time I heard about it. One of the news stations called me about it. I want to say it's Channel 9, I could be wrong, but one of the news stations called and they actually sent me a screenshot of one of the flyers that somebody in Campbell County had received. The answer is it is probably illegal. I'm gonna have to do a little more research into it. I'm not aware of any reports of people receiving those in Kenton County. Not real wild about it, but the news asked me, well, what do you want to tell people that get these flyers? And I said, well, if you're inclined to go over to Ohio and buy the weed, just stay in Ohio because marijuana is still illegal in Kentucky. And even if you buy it in Ohio, that doesn't mean it's legal in Kentucky. It's illegal to have it here, whether it's medical weed, legal weed, weed you got from your buddy, it doesn't matter. It's all illegal in Kentucky. And the last thing we want you doing is driving high. So if you go over Ohio, don't think you're gonna be smart, smoke all your dope, and then drive back to Kentucky, because we don't want you driving high over here. That's against the law. It's dangerous, and we will put you in jail for it. If you hurt somebody, we'll put you in prison for it. So if we get reports that these flyers are being sent to residents of Kenton County, my office is gonna start investigating it. So if you got one of these things, notify your police department. All you got, and trust me, police officers, especially out here in the suburbs, they are always looking for stuff to do. So if you got one of these flyers, call your police, have them stop by your house, pick it up, make a report, and we can start the process of looking into that. It's complicated because number one, it's very tough to prosecute companies. So I doubt anybody put their own individual name as I mailed this on there. So it's difficult to prosecute an LLC or a corporation, someone that has incorporated their business. But we will certainly look into it because we want them to know that, hey, Ohio may have legalized it, but Kentucky has not. The next question is, has the smash and grab of California fame entered Kentucky, and is it against the law? Well, first of all, it's absolutely against the law. Now, how much trouble you can get in really depends on the individual circumstances of what someone does. Thieving anything valued over $1,000 is a Class D felony. That's 1 to 5 years in Kentucky. So I know a lot of these smash and grabs that you see on TV, they were happening at jewelry stores or places where they sell fancy purses and expensive stuff. Real good chance that if you go up to Dillard's and steal one of their Louis Vuitton purses, those are worth over $1,000. That would get you a felony offense right there. iPhones these days cost over $1,000. Those would get you a felony right there. And because I know I've seen enough videos from other states where people who fought the store employees, if you use force or any kind of violence to accomplish the theft, that's no longer just theft, that's robbery. That can get you, depending on whether or not someone's injured, whether or not you use a weapon, it's at least a Class C felony, 5 to 10 years, potentially a Class B felony, 10 to 20 years. And both those robbery second degree, which is a C, and robbery first degree, which is a B, are now violent offenses since House Bill 5 went into effect, which means those people would have to serve 85% of their sentence. Good news is we haven't had a whole lot of smashing grabs. We haven't had any that I'm aware of open businesses. We did have, it's probably been 2 years ago, we had somebody smash in the front door of a phone store out in Independence, and they stole all the phones out of there, which ended up being over $100,000 worth of $1,000 phones, because they got over 100 of them. And we've had a lot of folks, especially up at Crestview Hills Mall, we've had folks that are all, just shocked you, I'm sure, from out of state, that will go into one of the stores at Crestview Hills Mall and just either grab a bunch of stuff off the shelves and run out, or load stuff up into a bag and run out. That's about the only crime we get out of the Lakeside Park Crestview Hills Police Department, is people stealing from the Crestview Hills Mall. It's not been the big mobs like you see on some of the news online where they have the videos of people just flooding the store. These are usually 1 to 3 people that are participating in this, not the big mobs that they've seen in some other parts of the country. But we got news for them. You can go out and do this in LA or San Francisco or maybe Chicago, and nobody goes to prison for it. Well, in Kenton County you do. So that's the important thing for people to remember, is we still prosecute criminals. We had this little war story. We had a guy come down from Milwaukee last year. He was a card-carrying member of the Gangster Disciples. He came down here to rob what he thought was another drug dealer in a house in Ellesmere. Only problem is he went to the wrong house. He's about 2 doors down from the house he meant to rob. And he got busted, and he found out the hard way that they might not do it in Milwaukee, but here in Kenton County, not only do we still prosecute criminals, we'll put you in prison. So that's where he is. Let's see, next one is, there's crazy nasty stuff that criminals are doing with artificial intelligence. Is that being dealt with? Yes. One of the things I should have mentioned about about the child, not House Bill 5, is a separate bill. The child sex doll bill, Representative Dietz also included artificial intelligence with that. So even if you use AI to generate the images of child porn and it's not an actual child, now thanks to that child sex doll bill, that is now just as illegal as actual child pornography. This has got to be from John, because I recognize the question. It says, are you ready? Ready for Jesus? The good news is, John, I guess that's a yes and a no answer. I think personally I'm ready, but I'm not ready to not watch my daughter grow up.
Right, right.
So, if it were just about me, I'd say yes, I'm ready. Whenever Jesus is ready for me, I'm ready for him, but I'm not done watching her grow up. So to that extent, to the extent that I still want to see her graduate high school, graduate college, get married, hopefully someday bring me some grandbabies or something, no, I'm not ready just yet. I'm ready personally, ready morally, but not ready to leave my daughter. So that's my answer for that.
Good answer.
Great speech. How do we work with this governor? Best speech. Well, thank you to whoever said it's a great speech. How do we work with this governor? That's a good question. You know, a lot of working with this governor, because that I can tell, not only is he doesn't want to work with anybody. The good news is that our legislature has a supermajority, so they can pass whatever they want, and they can override the vetoes that the governor's thrown in whenever he wants. It's pretty impressive to me when he just won a re-election by running around the state touting all the different changes in Kentucky government that he vetoed, you know, bragging about the budget, handing out big checks, never mentions to anybody that he vetoed the budget bill. But hasn't vetoed everything. For instance, he signed into law the child sex doll bill, and I think he vetoed House Bill 5, and that got overridden. But you know, the good news is that he can be dealt with, not necessarily working with him, but he can be worked with when he will work with the legislature, and he can be worked around when he doesn't. So that's the good news. But it's I'm getting to wrap it up, Sigmund. So,
Closing remarks.
Closing remarks. At least I'm timely, right? Am I have questions right now? Anyhow, in closing, I would just like to thank the Optimist Club again for having me. I know I get out here every 2-3 years to speak with you all, and it's always a pleasure, because in my world I get so wrapped up in cops and criminals that sometimes I think if you don't have a badge, you deserve to be in prison. Obviously that's not the case. It's just that's what I deal with in the courthouse from day to day. Cops and criminals criminals, but it's nice to get out to groups like this and be reminded that not everybody's a criminal, not everybody needs to go to prison. And if you want to keep tabs on what it is we do, I've got a website. It's kentonprosecutor.org. And on that front page, there's a yellow box. It's the only yellow anything on that front page. You can sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter, as Janine mentioned, goes out every Friday. It will list for you every person that was convicted or sentenced that week in the Kenton Circuit Court. It will tell you what the assigned prosecutor recommended as a sentence in the case. It will tell you what judge had the case, what sentence the judge actually imposed, and of course it gives credit to the police department that handled the case, so you know what your local police departments are up to, and what kind of crime is going on in the city you live. You can unsubscribe at any time, so if you ever get tired of seeing my face on those emails on Friday mornings, you can unsubscribe. If you take your email off our list, we can't add it back on. Only you can add it back on if you want to, and we don't sell your emails to anybody, so you don't have to worry about getting unwanted emails from anybody else, any additional emails from politicians asking you for money or anything like that. So if you want to keep tabs on what we do, go to kentonprosecutor.org, put your email in there, and you'll get to see, along with the best part, I should mention the mug shots. You also get to see who it is, because the mug shots are included with that information. But with that, I think I'm out of time, so thank you all again for having me.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I guess you can't beat that. One more time while you're there. I'd be surprised if they come.
And they love you, Rob.
So, yeah.
One more picture.
Towards the big door to the left.
Okay, I'm count of three. One for my house.
There is one out there by the park, but
Who's here in that door now? Get open, let's see what's in there.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see you.
yeah, my mom,
He's so
was
sweet.
in a nursing home for a couple of years. I spent 2 months in her rehab facility.
No idea. Kentucky, it wasn't legal.
Proud of you, Ron. Good job.
But it is
Thanks.
Cincinnati.
Huh?
No, I didn't know it. You know, Kentucky's the place where they grow.
You have one of the foundation
Welcome, Optimist friends. My name is Denny Shelton. Again, Optimist
I
Club.
gave you one.
We meet every Wednesday at 12 noon at Pee-wee's Place,
Okay,
2325
I just have my.
Anderson Road, Crescent Springs,
okay.
for TVNK viewers. Today is October 3rd, 2024. Today's presentation is videotaped and rebroadcast on Spectrum Channel 203, Ultra Fiber Channel 815, on Thursdays at 8 o'clock p.m. Rebroadcast on TVNK, Telecommunications of Northern Kentucky. Stay connected with TVNK, with TVNK to go, on demand, TVNK Facebook, and Optimist Facebook. James Morlock is our program director, editor, and he takes care of everything to make sure that this comes off very well and you get to see it on television. We have a very good speaker today, and I'm going to introduce our program director, J.B. Smith, who's going to introduce our speaker today.
I'm Janine Bell Smith, past president of the Optimist Club for 2 years. Also, I am the secretary and program director for the past 4. Today I have the honor and special to introduce Aaron Currin. He is running as a Democrat for the 65th District. Aaron Currin was born and raised in the 65th District. He attended St. Pius X in Edgewood and graduated from Covington Catholic High School in 1995. Aaron received his undergraduate degree from Northern Kentucky University in 1999 and his law degree from Salmon P. Chase College of Law at Northern Kentucky University in 2003. A respectful local attorney with 17 years of exemplary service as a public defender. Aaron has created a small business law practice as a trial attorney right here in the 65th district. His experience, commitment to public service, and deep ties to the district give him a huge, unique understanding of the district's needs and what is most important to our families who live here. He is the only candidate who truly represents the true values of the Kentucky 65th district. May I introduce Aaron Currin.
Thank you. Thank you. I gotta exchange the phone. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
He does that with his phone.
I'm a bit clumsy sometimes, so I apologize. Thank you for the introduction. I actually want to echo something that Mr. Sanders has stated before about the HEART program. As a criminal defense attorney that does a lot of work inside the court system, the HEART program is fantastic, and I think it actually is a model. One of the biggest issues I see from getting people into treatment is the transportation, which I believe Kenton County is really unparalleled with that. I know other counties, the difficulty sometimes getting them from jail into treatment, and I think that's been a really good thing that they've taken advantage of, and it should be a model for the state. So anyway, again, my name is Aaron Currin, and so growing up, my parents taught me that what I do should impact those around me positively. I became a public defender because of my deep commitment to public service. For 17 years, I protected my clients' fundamental rights and advocated for the underdog. That commitment to public service continues to this day in private practice. And although I still do criminal law, I've also been fortunate to do a lot of family law. And specifically what I've been able to do, especially in Grant County, Carroll, and Owen County, is I get to act as a guardian ad litem. So Rob was talking about the criminal aspect of a lot of these abuse cases. On the civil aspect, the courts actually have an opportunity to take away and get involved with the families to make sure if there's an allegation of sexual abuse or domestic violence, that we have a system in place to get, so those kids are no longer harmed. And what I really enjoy about that is I've been doing that for the better part of 2 years down in Grant County and Owen County. So I get to represent children as well as families that are victims of domestic violence and sex abuse, so that's been really rewarding. I get to also operate as a friend of court, where I get to sometimes do investigations for the court and kind of give them the impressions of what to do next. And I find that very rewarding, specifically since I've done criminal law for so long. One of the other aspects that I've been able to do specifically since 2020, is I've been teaching college, specifically in the MBA program over at University of Cincinnati and NKU, doing business law. And that's been very rewarding because it's an opportunity to start molding young minds and kind of telling them that's generally their first introduction into criminal into law. So that's been really rewarding because I can kind of teach them about that both online and in person. The other aspect that I really enjoy as far as teaching is I also teach at Chase College of Law. So I get to teach trial advocacy. So I've been doing that for a few years, which has been really rewarding because I get to take my skills and kind of talk to them about what's going on. Because I think the problem sometimes with law school is it's very academic, and at the end of the day, it's a very practical job, right? And when I graduated law school, no one really told me what to do, and they just kind of gave me this law license and this bar license, and just kind of let me go at it. And I think sometimes what these law programs have done, specifically Chase, is they give these practical classes that allow them to get in the community so they can start educating them. And it's really rewarding for me to be able to do that, specifically since I've run into some of the people that I've taught, and they say that those things have been really helpful for them to transition over there. So that's been an extra area that I've been really rewarded to be able to do, and I'm thankful for. But I was also born and raised in the 65th. I have deep roots here. I know the people and their values, and there's no greater honor to stand here and tell you that I'm running to represent this district in the House of Representatives. And as representative, I will advocate for access to health care and protect women's reproductive rights. I'll strengthen our economy by investing in infrastructure and economic development. I believe we should support workers and their families, and we need to ensure public money only goes to public schools. In 2022, the legislature expanded my district beyond Covington and the Park Hills, Fort Wright, Crestview Hills, Erlanger, and Edgewood. This turned a historically solid blue district to a much more moderate purple district. This new district requires a different candidate from what was required prior to 2022. Now, instead of adherence to a certain political ideology, essentially how people are represented, the voters must now decide who is representing them. Deciding which person best represents the needs of the whole district, not just Covington, not just Edgewood, not just Park Hills, not just Fort Wright. As I stated earlier, I'm a proud product of this district with deep roots in all the communities. I was born in Fort Wright, which was actually previous back then, Lookout Heights. I was raised in Edgewood. I now live in Fort Wright, and I opened my law practice in Covington. As Janine stated, I went to St. Pius in Edgewood, and I graduated from Covington Catholic. I was able to go to St. Pius in Covington Catholic because my mother worked as a banquet waitress at the drawbridge. So those are great memories for me. I tell you this because I believe it's important for you to know that I know this district, all of it, because I have deep roots in each community. I also have seen the district from all sides, from a public servant, a business owner, a student, and a son who realized the sacrifices of his parents to put him in the best position to succeed. The most important part of having deep roots in this community are the people that shaped me to be the person standing here before you. My parents and family shaped who I am today to reflect the values of the community that this community holds dear. My parents and family created the core of what I am, but it was my friends who strengthened and shaped them, many of which differed from me in my viewpoints. It was those differences that influenced my principles and beliefs, not as someone who believes all problems are solved by one ideology, but someone who understands that our community is stronger because we listen to everyone and everyone's values to make this community as strong as it can be. If I'm lucky enough to represent this district, I want everyone's voices heard. I want everybody to be included. I want this community to be better than when I left it. This community means the world to me. I want to give to it what it's been given me. And that's why I'm running, and that's why it's an honor to stand here as a candidate of House District 65. Thank you.
We'll take a short break, write your questions on the file cards, and we'll ask you those questions after a couple minutes.
I love the connection.
Yeah, my dad's name was Fritz.
Her father was my dad's side.
There it is, all
My
right.
dad's side is Irish.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're all over.
Any other questions?
Are we ready, Jay? Yep. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. And Aaron Currin is going to take a few questions and give us a few answers.
So the first question is about open meetings and open records. Cannabis concerns in Kenton County, and then school amendments. So I think as far as open meetings, one of the things that has kind of reaffirmed when I started running is the fact that we need a more transparent government, right? Because without transparency, you don't have accountability, right? And so those two things need to exist. And one of the things I've been concerned about, I think generally, nationally and everywhere, is the fact that we have lack of transparency, and it's a lot harder with getting information. I actually follow the open record stuff on Facebook a lot of times, and I read a lot of those opinions. And it's harder and harder to get information that would previously be available. And I think the difficulty is with the age of social media and the ability to get information. I think people are trying to lock some of that information down because it's easy to disseminate, whereas 30 years ago, it was a lot harder, right? But I personally think still those types of things, you need to have more open records, right? I think you need to have more transparency. And I think making it easier for citizens to get that information, I think is better, because I think the more information people have, the better they're able to make decisions on their own. When I've been knocking on doors, one of the things when I talk to people is, like, on a lot of these issues, and some of these issues are actually on here, is that a lot of people don't have an understanding of what the underlying facts are. They just have an idea of what the opinions on both sides are, right? And it's really hard to kind of tell where you stand on it, because you're largely relying on other people's summation of what's going on. So I think generally speaking, we need to have more transparency. So the second question is, do you support the effort to reduce income tax inequality in Kentucky? So I think when we talk about income tax, I think we need to actually expand it and look bigger and look at income taxes as a subset of property taxes, payroll taxes, sales tax. Historically, when you have states that reduce the income tax, you actually have them raise you have them raise sales taxes, and you also have them raise other taxes. One of the concerns I have locally is the fact that if we lower the income taxes, which is a statewide decision, the local communities, such as Kenton County and Edgewood and Fort Riley and Covington, then to fix some of the reductions in the income tax, have to raise the property taxes, right? So there's sometimes you have to kind of do both of them. So I think looking at the income tax as a one thing needs to be more expanded to kind of make sure that those are not being passed on to property taxes. To the fact to where like the elected representatives and elected senators are saying they're reducing income taxes when Chris Knockelman has to raise property taxes to make up for that shortfall, right? So that's actually the concern I have. And one of the byproducts, although I think in theory with a lot of the violent offender statutes that happened, I think those things are good, especially the violent offender stuff. One of the things that I think never, at least I didn't see it, that was not discussed about that, is as you increase penalties, it's harder and harder to get people out of jail. So that increases the jail costs. And until those people get sentenced, that cost goes to the counties, right? So Chris Knockelman and Gary Moore and Steve Pendery, in order to make up that shortfall until those people get sentenced, that's going to have to be paid through either property taxes or payroll taxes. And you have, specifically in Covington, you have Fidelity leaving, and the payroll taxes go where the person lives. So then you have a donut hole for Covington. And if these people live in Ohio, they're getting payroll taxes. So I think looking at that income tax as a bigger part of the tax policy, I think is good. They didn't leave. They went to work from home. I'm sorry. By them going from work from home, I misspoke. When they went from work from home, they're now going where they're living as opposed to where they are. So they're not leaving, it's just Covington doesn't get those payroll taxes unless the people live in Covington. So we'll get this.
A lot of jobs.
I'm sorry?
That's a lot of jobs.
It
They were
is.
leaving.
It is. And then, are you ready? Ready for Jesus? Yes, I am. I believe when my time comes, I will be ready. I try to live every day as good as I can by the golden rule to make sure that when I leave this world, that I leave it better off. And that, yes, I believe whenever that happens, I will be ready because I do everything I can to live as good of a life as I can. Can you talk about Amendment 2 and what your position is on this? I want to kind of go back to the first question and talk about open records and generally like accountability and transparency. This is one of the issues that I think both sides kind of give their opinion that's not entirely what the facts are. As a short answer, I'm actually opposed to Amendment 2. I actually believe we should keep public money in public schools. If you look at these things, a lot of the things people are talking about is, we don't have the resources in these schools that are doing what they need to be doing, but in a lot of instances, there are opportunities to be putting money in schools and they're being rejected, right? So we have to kind of look at that as a part of a bigger thing. But also, if you look, and we don't necessarily know, all this amendment does is it gives the legislature permission to figure out what they want to do with that. There's really when you ask a lot of people that are in favor of it, no one's really able to give you specifically what they want to do. And that's a little frightening to me. If there's a little bit more of a guidelines of it, that would probably be a little bit, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with it. But I've not been able to sit there and say specifically what it would look like if that happens. So I think as far as that, I'm opposed to Amendment 2. And then what is your position on Ohio marijuana advertising in Kentucky? I believe I might have, I don't want to misspeak, I believe I might have gotten one of these in the mail, either at my office or at my house over in Fort Riley. So I agree with Rob Sanders in that right now it is illegal to to possess marijuana in Kentucky. I know there's been some executive actions taken that give people the ability to get marijuana legally through a process. I think that process is still in flux, and they're still figuring it out. One of the things that's unique here is the fact that if the closest target for my house is over in Ohio, right? It's not Florence, it's actually Oakland. That's the closest target to my house. So if there is a executive action that they're allowed to take on that, and your doctor's over in Ohio, I don't think you're necessarily advertising for that, but like you have a lot of medical providers over in Ohio that we have. However, as far as advertising marijuana in Kentucky, I don't necessarily agree with it because it's illegal, right? Until it's legal, right? We shouldn't be doing that, because what you're doing is you're deceiving the citizens of Kentucky by saying you can do this. Oh, and it's legal, right? But in reality over here, it's not, until you go through the proper procedures that's set up in Kentucky. So I think as far as the marijuana advertising, I'm opposed to it. I do believe we need to have a bigger discussion about marijuana. I know one of the issues in family court that we talk about is there's not a lot of people, but there's a few people that I'm aware of that are taking advantage of either the Ohio system or the Kentucky system, and then they are in court, and then the court's punishing them for doing that, but they have this legal right, right? So we need some type of guidance from the courts of, even if it's allowed, what are we doing in court on these things, right? I think having some type of discussion about that is wise, and I think Rob had mentioned it before with marijuana driving, with Ohio marijuana. One of the reasons, because it's illegal, one of the problems with it is we have no real workable solution on how to handle marijuana when you're driving drunk. Because the belief is you shouldn't have any in your system, right? And there's been some problems, and there's been some case that's gone on appeal that tries to figure out where's the line, right? And we can't have that discussion because a lot of it's illegal. So I think this marijuana is a problem that is bubbling up in various ways, and I think advertising is one of them. But the thing I'm more concerned about is making sure that if you are on it, there's a program in place or a scheme in place so that the courts, the police, and the prosecutors can figure out whether you're driving while you're impaired on marijuana. Because right now there's no, with alcohol it's 0.08, right? You know what that is. In Kentucky there's no levels. So it's up on a case-by-case basis. And that's the thing that's most concerning with marijuana, is the fact that we might have people driving, and there's really no workable solution statewide. It's more just on a case-by-case basis, and that's the thing that's more concerning to me. So, does anybody else have any other questions?
Closing remarks.
Oh,
I have one that
yes.
I can think of. What is your concerns on the service taxes, 6%? Because I find out that I pay taxes for the items that say the landscaping is going to charge me, and then I pay another 6% for the service tax. And if you have a tree cut down $2,000, multiply that by 6%. That's a lot of money, and I think that's why the coffers of the Kentucky budget are so full of money, because they're bleeding us of the service taxes, and I'd like to see it removed.
Can you restate the question in a short sentence, so as fans on TV can hear it?
So the question is in relation to the income tax, it's what's your position on the service taxes for, like, if you cut a tree down, it's the 6% service taxes. And the belief was that, what was stated was that they're kind of bleeding, that's kind of bleeding us through those types of things. That's actually my concern with looking just specifically at income taxes, right? Because unless we want to get serious about what we're going to be specifically cutting and spending, right? And when you ask people that want to cut spending, no one's really able to give you a thing specifically what they want to cut. Until you want to have that conversation, there's going to be a hole somewhere, right? And if you're cutting the income taxes, you're going to have to raise service taxes, you're going to have to raise payroll taxes, you're going to have to raise property taxes. So I think having the service tax discussion in relation to income tax, sales tax, payroll taxes, and property taxes is actually the discussion we should be having as a general tax policy. And I'm against basically doing these service taxes to fix holes elsewhere, because people need to balance the budget. So I think as far as that stuff, I'm concerned about it. just because it makes the cost for you more expensive, but it also makes it harder for small businesses, which is where this affects a lot of them, to make money, because I got something from someone that I have a really hilly backyard, and he sent me something saying I'm gonna have to increase the price by 6% because of that. And when I looked at it, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, but I ultimately still did it because he's a small business. But he's taking a hit for that as well, because people are leaving because they're going somewhere else, right? And they can go to a bigger place that can maybe absorb that sales tax a little bit more than these smaller individual people. So I think it's affecting the much smaller businesses as well as the people. So I think having that discussion as part of the bigger income tax, sales tax, payroll tax is the way it should be handled.
Closing remarks.
Yeah, so I appreciate you guys letting me speak. One of the things that I put my name in, I never decided to run, but in November I decided to run. And one of the biggest things that I've really enjoyed is actually just knocking on doors and talking to people and coming to situations like this where I get to meet people. Because I think a lot of times when we are running politics, you're looking at the news, you get these stories on both sides. And you don't necessarily get issues that specifically speak to you, right? So when I meet with people in Fort Wright, I meet with people in Park Hills, and I meet with people in these small setting groups, I get to talk about what's really important to them as opposed to what other people are saying are important. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'm available for anything later on, but thank you very much.
Do you have time for us to take some pictures?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe, yeah, we
Passing pot around?
not in Kentucky. Not in Kentucky.
That can't make up its mind,
You ready, Currin? Yeah. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Janine.
There it is.
All right, here we go. Janine. How you doing? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Portrait of the Walker, but I did.
Okay.
Yeah, are you putting this all on Facebook?
This will be on Facebook.
And there's a fight going on because they're still in the gate open, right?
Why aren't you wearing your cowboy hat? I still wear mine. So.
I still wear mine too.
Well, you know, what size head you got?
Well, large.
But I don't have that big of a head.
Now, this is a song here that I learned from Billy Graham and a fellow named Cliff Barrows and George Beverly Shea. And it was taught to me right after Billy Graham said, it's the Holy Spirit's job to convict, it's God's job to judge, it's my job to love. And I said, and I love like this. And it goes, I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather be his than have riches untold. I'd rather have Jesus than houses or lands. I'd rather be led by his nail-pierced hands than to be the king of a vast domain, or be held in sin's dread sway. I'd rather have Jesus than anything this world affords today. And God bless you all.
God bless you.
Nice to be here with you today at Pee Wee's Restaurant.
I've never heard that song before.
Yep, that was written by George Beverly Shea and Cliff Barrows. And in fact, Cliff Barrows even autographed my Bible for me later in life.
I had a guy come to I've been giving the Billy Graham for a zillion years.
Yep.
Just a small amount of money.
Yep, absolutely.
I had a guy come to my door of the Billy Graham Crusade and gave me a book.
Is that right? Wonderful.
From his organization.
Yeah.
And they're in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Boone, North Carolina, I think.
Yep. Well, they are wonderful people. I've been down to the library and spoken. I've sang in the hall down there, and sang in the hall,
And I'll go back again too.
Yeah,
if I get a chance.
absolutely.
I didn't get to see
You
it
leaving,
all,
Coach?
'cause it was
but you know
flooded.
something? I really enjoy
Good to
coming
see you.
by here and meeting you guys and singing to
Maybe
you
I'll see
guys
Thursday night.
and singing to
I won't
you,
be there early.
my old friends.
Thursday
Tomorrow
night.
night.
Tomorrow.
God bless all of you.
Thank you.
I haven't, well, I've been there often.
I better get on now. I got to go to pulmonary rehab over at St. Elizabeth.
Okay.
They come up with this strange idea. They can keep me alive.
Yeah, right.
See y'all later.
Guys, I gotta hit it.
I gotta hit it. Pee Wee's Restaurant here. Place to come and get a good meal. God bless you.